We were in Surah Yusuf, and I'm going to now explain certain verses of Quran in sequence, of course. And it is very interesting to note that we are entering into a new phase of the tests and tribulations and imtihan that Hazrat Yusuf had to face. I make some remarks. I hope that the ladies listening to me will not take any objection, because it will not be meant against them. It will be a general statement, because after all, the facts of life have got to be taken into consideration. Because it is said normally, when we refer to women and say, women are a weaker sex, but the fact is quite otherwise. Man is weakest before a woman. So, we first go to this ayah, in which yesterday or day before yesterday, I said that Hazrat Yusuf was sold off to that caravan for 18 dirham, and even those dirham were not in currency. But what happened next is that they took Hazrat Yusuf together with them to Egypt, to Misr, and there they sold him to a very rich household. The person who bought him over as a slave was the governor of Egypt, or a minister of Egypt. Quran Majid says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِن مِصْرَ لِامْرَأَتِهِ أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. The fellow who bought him told his wife, Akrimi Mathwa, I have bought this young slave, beautiful, handsome, Akrimi Mathwa. Be kind to him, treat him well. The name of the woman, the wife, was Zulaykha. And he is telling her that look after him well. Akrimi Mathwa, keep him on an honored position. That means treat him kindly and well. Perhaps in the future, as he grows up, he will be of benefit to us. That means he was thinking of selling him off again as a slave to earn some more money, because if you look after him, he grows up into a healthy young man. Or because they had no issues, they had no children by then, Asa an nattakhidahu walada, or we will adopt him as our son. Then Allah says, this is how we arranged for Yusuf to live in peace after having come from the well. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ. Now Yusuf was at peace, a tranquil life. وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. This is something which we must remember always. And if you are in difficulties, God forbid, or if somebody is trying to intimidate you unnecessarily, always say, وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. Allah is always victorious over the affairs. There is no one. Whatever He decides finally happens. Wallahu ghalibun ala amri. Though many people do not know, Yusuf lived there from that small childhood, tender age, grew into a young man. He was 9 then, and by the time he became baligh, let us say minimum, it must be 6 years. He lived there 6 years, and during those six years, Allah says, we taught him the prime meaning of the things, what I have already explained, ta'wil. That means nubuwwah was then being given to him already. He was a Nabi, and he was under the strict surveillance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, what happened then? He lived there. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. And when he came of age, that means became mature, that means baligh, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We gave him wisdom and knowledge. وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And this is how we reward those who do good. Well, this happened. Now Yusuf is a young man, mature. The test which started now is more severe than going down the wall. Well, it's now more severe. It is said that behind every great man there is a woman. You see, when I said man is weakest, there is no doubt about it. So women should not take any offense. Because when a woman follows the dictates of Sharia, she becomes the best person in the household, the best wife, the best daughter, and when she becomes a mother or grandmother, then as we all know, the Prophet said when he was asked, when a boy asked him, Ya Rasulullah, sometimes it happens that my mother calls me and also my father. At the same time, who should I answer first? And the Prophet said, your mother. And he asked again, he said, Ya Rasulullah, but they both asked together, they both called me together. He said, yes, mother first. And when he asked for the third time, the Prophet said, you go on asking me 70 times, my answer is same. First you will answer your mother. So that is what can happen. But quite opposed to that, if a woman tries to seduce a man, then it is a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation. And if she tries to boss, then of course there is nothing worse than this in life. It is said, as I have said earlier, that somewhere it is mentioned that God created the whole, in Bible it is mentioned, in Quran also says, Allah created this world in 6 stages. According to Quran it is stages. But according to Genesis and Bible it is 6 days. The word used in Quran is also Yawm, but Yawm, as it is explained, is stages. Because when he created everything, the sun and the moon, before the sun and the moon were created, there could have been no days and no nights. So he created in stages. But it's said that every time, it is said in Genesis also, that every time he created, he rested. He rested. He created the earth for 2 days and then he rested. Then he created the rivers and everything, and the fruits and whatever, and the seeds. And he created everything, wind and the storm, and then he rested. And he created the skies and the heavens and the planets, and then he rested. Finally he created man, and then he rested. And he created a woman, he never rested. Thereafter he never rested. That is what is said there. Never rested. So for a man to decide to be restful after having known that there is a partner called a woman is very difficult. Very difficult. Extremely difficult. It is said about Socrates that he was a great man. Socrates was a great philosopher. There is no doubt about it. Even today, the philosophy is based upon the early thinking of Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, on those. With changes, of course. Human minds change, thinking changes, but the foundation was laid by him. But the fellow was a hand-packed husband, as they say. The wife was Jabbar. You see, whole country, all city of Athens respected him. If he walked, young men of Athens and in Greece used to walk behind him, ask him questions and learn from him. The only person with whom he was totally nervous was his wife. The moment he entered home, where have you been? Bas. Now to tell him that I have been in the city teaching people, you got no other work? What about the ration at home? What about milk? What about meat? What about food and things like that? You are not caring about the house. You are just teaching. What is going to come out of it? This happens to us also. When we are students and we get married, and at night we take Biharul Anwar and read. So the wife sometimes says, have you married Biharul Anwar or have you married me? It happens. You've got to be very careful to strike a good balance between Biharul Anwar and the wife. So similarly, when he came home one day, he was asked about a particular list that he was given to bring something at home, and he had forgotten, naturally. A philosopher forgets. And he said, I have forgotten. So she started a very harsh lecture. Tame avar, tame tevar. You useless, you are this, you are that. But the fellow was already absorbed in his own thinking. For he was lost. He was not even listening to what the wife was saying. Because he was in all his own philosophy. He was in the clouds. And suddenly the wife felt that the man is not listening. So she went, took a bucket and filled it with water. And she spilled all the water over his head and said, wake up. He said, oh, it is true, after thunder comes rain. Always, after thunder comes rain. So, this is how it is, always. Haven't you seen your friends when they drive cars, sometimes they don't show courtesy to men drivers, but they show to women drivers. Bichari bale jaye. These are the things which begin. And in this country, especially, it is very difficult for a young man. And this is what happened to Yusuf, alayhi salam, that Allah says, وَرَاوَدَتْهُ الَّتِي هُوَ فِي بَيْتِهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. And the woman, that announced Zulaykha, who brought him up as a young man for 6-7 years, suddenly got infatuated with Yusuf and his beauty and his physique and his body and his looks. And she invited him to the vice. Warawadathu. It is mimbar. Therefore I cannot translate it openly. Therefore she invited her to the vice. Warawadathu. وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. Now the hayta lak is the height of Arabic eloquence, fasah, which can be translated roughly as to say, come over, come on, get what belongs to you. This is the meaning of it. And Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, used to read as haytu lak. He puts a dhamma on it, which means hayyatu lak. That means I'm ready for you. Haytu lak. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. Now, it could have been وَأَغْلَقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she shut the doors. But to say وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ is meaning she shut the doors tight. Slammed the door. Now, these are the fine points in Quran. By just changing from أغلق into غلق, superlative degree has been applied by Allah. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. She shut the door, she slammed the door hard. At that particular moment, Yusuf said, Ma'ad Allah, I seek refuge from God. This cannot happen. My God, my Rabb has been very kind to me up to this moment. And whoever transgresses, whoever commits the sin, he shall never be saved. I cannot do this. Imam Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, in this tafsir says, he says that when she said hayta lak, and she invited Yusuf to the vice, she rose from the bed, she took her chadar, and there was a statue there who she used to pray, and she covered the face of the statue. She covered. So Yusuf said, what are you doing now? He said, I don't want my God to see, because I worship him. And that time Hazrat Yusuf said, a God who does not hear, does not see, does not know, does not have a witness, and you are trying to cover him. What about God who is a witness everywhere? And you are expecting me to transgress and to do that. We don't do. And not only that, but Tafsir says, Nahnu alu Yaqub. We are the sons of Yaqub. We are never adulterers and fornicators. We don't go into this. Therefore, he refused. But Quran goes on. It says, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَن رَأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. She made an intention for him. She came out with all the intention for him. وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَن رَأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. Here it is what I want to say, that because those Muslims who don't believe that Nabi is a Ma'soom, they have translated something which I can't even mention on Mimbar. But what they mean to say is that even Yusuf was prepared, but he saw a sign of God. This is what they have translated. That she was prepared for him, and he was prepared for her, had it not that he had seen the sign of God. Now this means that Yusuf had also an intention of committing a sin. And thereon in Tafsir, if you go on reading of all those Muslims that they write, Astaghfirullah, they describe all those events which took place, which did not take place. They are all ascribed wrongfully to Hazrat Yusuf. What our Aimma alayhimus salam have said is so subtle at the same time, so pertinent. You see, it's a way of reading the Quran. And it is, of course, in day-to-day occurrences also, we say this way. What our Aimma alayhimus salam have said is, the meaning is, لَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ. She had an intention for him. وَلَوْلَا أَن رَأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ لَهَمَّ بِهَا. This is how it is. Had it he not seen from the very beginning the sign of God, he would have gone for her. That is the meaning of it. And this happens even in our day-to-day conversation. What is that sign? My friends, a Nabi is Ma'soom. And the difference between us and other Muslims who don't believe in Isma is, we say, An-Nabiyyu, An-Nabiyyu, walau kana sabiyya. Nabi is Nabi even if he is a child. And they say, was-sabiyyu, sabiyyu walau kana nabiyya. They say a child is child even if it's a prophet. There is a difference. We say a prophet is a prophet even if a child. They say a child is a child even if he is a prophet. And there is a marked difference. That Hazrat Yusuf, Allah says, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We have given him already wisdom and ilm. Therefore, he had already reached that stage where thinking of committing this sin. Thinking. Not that he could not. If he could not, then there is no beauty in that. He could, but there was no question of even thinking. لَوْلَا أَن رَأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ means he had already become Ma'soom. He was Ma'soom right from his birth. He had already understood that Burhan was with him. Therefore, there was no question of making any intention towards it. Now, from here onwards, what was the test? How severe it is, and how it applies to all of us in our lives, especially when we live in the society where we live. How to guide our young people, men and women, boys and girls, and save them from falling into such pitfalls. We shall do it tomorrow. Wassalamu alaikum.